marked by a tyrant after transmigrating. Chapter 01. The moon hung high in the sky and the night breeze was cool. In the autumn hunting grounds of the Changlu Empire's royal family, several squads of elite cavalry held torches high as they searched the forest around the camp. Half an hour ago, the ruler of Changlu had been assassinated in his own tent, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Inside the camp, there was a boiling cauldron of voices, cries, and shouts. In another tent not far away from the emperor's tent, a handsome young man was sitting in front of a table, reading a book. "Young master, are you really not going to take a look?" Beside him, a black-clothed personal guard brought a cup of tea and asked in a low voice. The youth didn't even raise his head as he replied, "I'm not going. But if something happens to His Majesty." Before he could finish his sentence, the youth raised his eyes and coldly glanced at him. The youth was quite young and his facial features were elegant. He even looked a little dainty. He should have just fallen asleep, as he was only wearing a thin inner garment, which made his figure look thin and slender. His face was fair and flawless, except for a small cinnabar mole below his earlobe. His face was bright red, and under the light of the charcoal brazier, it was very eye-catching. However, when he looked over like this, it made people feel a chill run down their spines, and they didn't dare to look at him directly. The personal guard felt guilty under his gaze and hurriedly shut his mouth. "You've been by my side for a long time, so you don't need me to teach you what to say and what not to say." The youth flipped the book in his hand. "There will be no next time. Get out. As the young master commands." "Wait." The youth suddenly stopped him. "Remove the charcoal basin, it's too hot." The personal guard was slightly startled and looked at the youth. At some point, the air became filled with a faint smell of fruit and wood. Perhaps it was due to the heat from the charcoal fire, but the side of the young man's face was visibly pink from ear to ear, which made the small cinnabar mole look even more gorgeous, adding a hint of charm to it. He pulled at his loose collar and his expression was somewhat impatient. "What's wrong?" "No, nothing, young master." The personal guard suddenly had difficulty breathing. He didn't dare to say anything else and hurriedly removed the charcoal basin as he left. It wasn't until he left the tent that the personal guard felt that something was wrong. In the past, the young master was extremely afraid of the cold. Now that it was late autumn, the nights should be cold. How could he be feeling hot? Silence was restored inside the tent again. The young man sat upright, but his eyes were looking out over the top of the book. Seeing that there was no more movement outside, he let out a long sigh of relief, threw the book on the table, and lay down as if he had no bones. "They're finally gone. About 15 minutes ago, Yeshu had transmigrated into this world." This was a novel about political strategies. In the novel, the Great Yan, Changlu, and West Xia dynasties ruled over each other's territories. The male protagonist, Jin Wang, was the new emperor of Changlu Empire. This male lead was different from the others. Jin Wang was extremely narrow-minded, cold-blooded, and merciless. He was someone who was vengeful. He was not favored by the late emperor, so he advanced step by step, killing his father and brothers, and finally seizing the throne. During his coronation ceremony, the eunuchs who had bullied him when he was young all had their hands and feet chopped off, and then they were thrown into a tiger cage in front of everyone. They were then eaten by the tigers and died. After ascending to the throne, Jin Wang used thunderous methods to kill the traitorous officials and eradicate the dissidents. Then, he started a war and personally led the troops. In just 3 years, he defeated the Great Yan and West Xia and finally unified the realm. Yeshu had transmigrated into the cannon fodder who has the same name as him in the novel. The original was the son of a rebellious official. When he was young, his family had declined. Fortunately, he met the then prince, Jin Wang, and stayed by his side as a follower. The original and Jin Wang grew up together. After Jin Wang ascended to the throne, he made an exception and made the original the left prime minister, who was also responsible for supervising hundreds of officials. However, the original and Jin Wang did not share the same political views, and a rift soon formed between them. In the third year of Jin Wang's rule, the original colluded with foreign enemies and plotted to assassinate the emperor during the autumn hunt. Who would have thought that the assassination would fail and the plot would be exposed? Yeshu's entire family was implicated, and he became the first well-known cannon fodder to be brought down by Jin Wang. Simply put, he was just a tool for the male lead to gain experience. What's with all of this? Yeshu slumped over the table. Hearing the cries outside the tent, he felt a headache coming on. The cries outside were very loud, but no one knew that Jin Wang was not in the camp tonight. Long before the original had planned the assassination, Jin Wang had already learned of what he would do, and the person in the emperor's tent was a fake. Once the assassins made their move, the original scheme would completely come to light. 3 days later, Jin Wang would personally lead troops to surround the original's estate. He would then be imprisoned, his properties would be confiscated, and he will be sentenced to die by lynching. The original only lived for 3 chapters in the novel. At the end of the 3rd chapter, the original was cut into pieces until only a skeleton was left. He was personally pushed off the city gate tower by Jin Wang and then trampled to pieces by thousands of cavalry, literally ending up as crushed bones and scattered ashes. Yeshu trembled and finally could not sit still. Regardless of anything else, this way of dying was just too miserable. It was already bad enough that he had transmigrated into a novel. He did not want to die like this. No, he had to escape quickly. Whoever wanted to have his position could have it, he did not want to serve him anymore. The camp was in a mess. No one noticed that a figure had silently slipped out of the camp. Yeshu knelt by the stream and washed his face with water. His fingers were slightly trembling. The water droplets slid down his neck and into his collar, leaving behind a trail of water. He pulled at his collar impatiently. Why was it so hot? The royal hunting ground was located in the forest outside the capital. It was late autumn and the cool mountain wind blew at night. However, when it blew on Yeshu's body, he did not feel cold at all. He had been in immense panic upon his transmigration and did not notice the strangeness of this body. Now that the night wind blew, he was slightly more awake. The unexplainable heat he was feeling was like a wildfire burning in the prairie. Yeshu's forehead was soon covered in a thin layer of sweat. Even his breathing became hot. Yeshu lowered his head and looked at his hands. He suddenly had a guess. He couldn't have been poisoned by an aphrodisiac, right? Who the hell drugged him? You didn't catch even a single one. The tall canopy of the trees blocked the moonlight. A black-clothed figure stood in the forest. Behind him, the person at the front trembled as he said, Your Majesty, those criminals are extremely cunning and planned well. We really? You can't or you don't want to. Jin Wang's tone was light and steady. The imperial guards behind him all knelt down in unison. Your Majesty, please forgive us. This subordinate would never dare to betray Your Majesty. You don't dare. Jin Wang finally turned his head. His handsome eyes shone cold in the moonlight. His gaze fell lightly on the leading imperial guard. Drag this one away and cut him into pieces. Your Majesty, please spare my life. Your Majesty, mercy please. The blood-curdling screams and cries resounded through the forest. Everyone looked at each other and did not dare to move. Jin Wang raised his eyes. Everyone trembled under his gaze. Immediately, 2 people stepped forward and dragged that person away. The cries gradually faded away. The forest became so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Jin Wang calmly said, If you can't find him before he dies, you know the consequences. Everyone hurriedly replied, Yes, Your Majesty, and scrambled away in a panic. Jin Wang walked through the forest. Suddenly, a strange sound came from the darkness behind him. He stopped in his tracks and held a golden needle between his fingertips. A sweet fruity fragrance spread through the forest. Jin Wang's expression changed slightly. This smell is... Before he could react, a figure crashed into his arms. Jin Wang was knocked back half a step. His back hit a thick tree trunk. At the same time, a piece of black silk covered his eyes and blocked his vision. "Don't move." The voice in his ear was hoarse and weak. It was obviously trembling. The sweet fruity fragrance filled his nose. The fragrance was very light, like ripe plum after the rain. It seemed to be moving in the darkness, making one's mouth water. Yeshu was feeling very uncomfortable. After discovering that he might have been drugged, his first reaction was to escape before the drug took effect. But who knew that the forest was so big and the paths were so rugged that he lost his way not long after he entered the forest. Yeshu walked alone in the forest for a long time. His body was getting hotter and hotter under the effects of the drug. Moreover, he had no way of relieving himself. He wanted someone to help him. "I've been poisoned." Yeshu softly breathed in and said, "Can you help me?" There was a long silence. The body in his arms was frighteningly hot. Jin Wang calmly put away the golden needles and raised his hand to hold the other person's slender waist. When his fingers brushed against the other person's body, it caused the other person to visibly shiver. The sweet fruity fragrance suddenly became stronger. "You want me to help you?" Jin Wang seemed to find it interesting. He asked softly, "Do you know who I am?" You're wearing an Imperial Guard's uniform." Yeshu grabbed the other person's arm tightly as if he was grasping at straws. "Help me find someone, to cure the poison. I can repay you. 5 days later, go to a tea shop 10 li outside the city. Go to the private room at the end of the second floor under the table. That money can guarantee that you won't have to worry about food or clothing for the rest of your life. You won't have to work so hard to make a living." The original owner of the body had great power in Changlu and was extremely wealthy. Yeshu had already made up his mind to escape. He couldn't take his family's property with him, but it wouldn't be difficult to give some of it to this person. There was no one else in the forest and he couldn't leave. This was the only solution Yeshu could think of. However, the man only laughed softly. His voice was extremely low and hoarse, like a small hammer hitting Yeshu's heart. "I don't want money." Yeshu's legs were so weak that he could barely stand on them. His eyes were red as he asked, "Then what do you want?" The man asked back, "You're the one begging me. Shouldn't you think about it yourself?" I don't know." Yeshu's consciousness gradually blurred. He leaned his forehead against the man's shoulder and whispered, "Help me. I'll give you anything you want." Yeshu was too close. After being blindfolded, Jin Wang's senses were clearer than usual. The fruity aroma seemed to be 100 times stronger than before. The sweet smell was pervasive and drew out the most primitive instincts in people's hearts. Jin Wang had never thought that the young prime minister, who dared to argue with him in court and went against his superiors, would actually present as an Omega. In this world, some men and women would experience a second gender presentation after they reached adulthood. Most Alpha were powerful and had high status. Omega were relatively weak and had the ability to give birth to offspring. With Yeshu's personality, Jin Wang had originally thought that he would also be an Alpha. This was way too interesting. Jin Wang's sharp lips curled up slightly. Under the sweet fruity aroma of the plum blossoms, a brand new scent spread throughout the forest. The scent of an alpha was cold and strong. It was extremely aggressive, like a wine that had been sealed for a long time, mellow and rich. Yeshu couldn't help but groan. He seemed to have finally sensed the dangerous aura emanating from this person. He staggered back half a step but was forcefully pulled back. Their clothes rustled against the grass as the two of them rolled into a patch of grass. The black silk covering Jin Wang's eyes finally slid down, revealing a pair of handsome and cruel eyes. Jin Wang looked down at the person in his arms. Yeshu became completely unconscious from the fall. His brows were tightly knitted, but he still followed his instincts and burrowed into Jin Wang's arms. His head was tilted to the side and the small mole by his ear had become as red as blood. This was the unique mark of an Omega. He didn't even realize that he was actually presenting. He was still so muddle-headed. Jin Wang used his fingertips to rub the brightly colored mole, forcing out a few sweet moans. Yeshu couldn't endure this kind of torture. He struggled slightly in his arms. Don't. Jin Wang's tone was indifferent as he asked, does what happened tonight have anything to do with you? No. Jin Wang tightened his grip and said, speak. I'm not telling you. Yeshu was already muddle-headed from the heat of passion in his body. He buried his head in the man's arms and muttered, you only want to watch me die and didn't want to save me. You're too bad. Why should I tell you? He still had such a self-righteous look on his face. Jin Wang was almost angered to the point of laughing. In the 3 years since he ascended the throne, Yeshu seemed to have changed into a different person. He began to oppose him at every turn. But tonight, he felt that the Yeshu of the past had returned. That person, who had once fulfilled his every request, who had accompanied him for many years. The collar of the person in his arms had loosened during the struggle just now. Jin Wang finally raised his hand to cover it. There's no one else here. There's only me. What do you think we should do? Yeshu whimpered softly. What answered Jin Wang was another wave of strong fruity scent. He had given up all resistance. He was like a ripe plum, overflowing with fruity fragrance, ready to be plucked. Jin Wang stared deeply at him and finally smiled with satisfaction. Very good. The moonlight shone through the canopy, casting mottled shadows on the two people who were intimately hugging each other like gauze. Jin Wang used all his strength to hold the person in his arms tightly. The moans in his ears were broken and weak. Yeshu, Yechienen, you better not have betrayed me. He lowered his head and covered the small mole beside Yeshu's earlobe. He gently bit and pecked it, injecting a strong burst of pheromones into his body. Yeshu's body trembled uncontrollably as Jin Wang held him in his arms. They were as intimate as lovers. Otherwise, Zhen will definitely make you pay. End chapter. Marked by a tyrant after transmigrating. Chapter 02. Yeshu opened his eyes. The sky was not completely bright yet. Faint rays of light seeped in and sprinkled on the gauze that was inlaid with gold. Yeshu stared at the gauze canopy above his head in a daze. Where was he? The air was filled with a refreshing and warm fragrance. There was also a very faint smell of alcohol, so faint that it was almost undetectable. Yeshu propped himself up on the soft bed and sat up. He heard his muscles protested and his bones crack under the pressure. His lower back ached and he fell back down. Ouch! Yeshu hissed in pain. His memory of last night was blurry. Ever since he had entered the forest, his body had become hotter and hotter, and he had been craving for someone to touch him, but there was no one around. He walked in the empty forest for an unknown amount of time before he finally heard some footsteps. His brain was in a mess from the heat of passion. In his daze, he only remembered that he could not let anyone see his face. Thus, he casually pulled a piece of cloth to cover the other person's eyes and pounced on him. After that, madness, loss of control, confusion, and disorientation. Yeshu covered his face and did not dare to think about it anymore. He had only gone to ask for help. How did it end up like this? In all honesty, he did like men and preferred to be the one being taken. However, this did not mean that he was willing to sleep with just any man. Moreover, he was such a rough man. Yeshu rubbed his waist and suddenly felt a little wronged. It was completely different from the gentle, considerate, and sweet first night of his fantasy. This experience was too lousy. Yechienen relaxed for a while before sitting up with the help of the bed rest. His inner garments had been changed into a fresh one. The material was soft and comfortable, but the size was not quite right. Half of the sleeve had grown out. Yeshu casually tied it up and it hung loosely around his wrist. He quietly lifted the corner of the gauze canopy and looked outside. This place looked like a sleeping chamber. The interior of the chamber was luxuriously decorated, but it did not look tacky. Every decoration and carving was meticulously arranged. One look and one could tell that it was very expensive. This was not good. No matter how little Yeshu understood about this world, he could tell that the owner of this chamber was either rich or a noble. He might even be wealthier than the average rich person. Could he have slept with someone from the imperial family? Wasn't that man from last night an imperial guard? I can't be that unlucky, right? Yeshu mumbled softly. Just as he was about to get out of bed, he heard footsteps outside the door. Yeshu shrunk back into the bed at lightning speed and pulled the blanket over himself tightly. Someone pushed the door open and entered. There was more than one visitor. Yeshu lifted his head from the quilt and peeked through the gap in the gauze curtain. The person walking at the front was dressed in black. From where Yeshu's angle of vision was, he could not see his face. He could only see that the hem of his robe was embroidered with gold thread. Why isn't he awake yet? His voice was low and deep. Yeshu felt his scalp tingle. It was really the man from last night? Yeshu unconsciously tightened his grip on the thin blanket and held his breath. Then, he heard another person speak. Your Majesty, Minister, yes, body is weak. Perhaps he was overworked. He'll be fine after a short rest. Your Majesty. Your Majesty. Your Majesty. Yeshu froze in place, as if he had been struck by lightning. He did not recover for a long time. The memories of the original owner of the body were not clear. Last night was also very chaotic. Even if he saw the other person's face last night, he wouldn't be able to recognize who it was. He actually slept with Jin Wang? Wait a minute. During ancient times, people placed value on these things. As the saying went, a day as husband and wife means endless devotion for the rest of your life. After being tormented by Jin Wang last night, perhaps he could use this opportunity to beg the other party to let him live. The next moment, Jin Wang's cold voice rang out, use needles. Prick him awake. Yeshu. This person must be mad. The hall was silent. Yeshu could only hear his own rapid heartbeat. Soon, someone lifted the gauze curtain and placed a hand on the back of his hand. Then, they lifted a finger. Yeshu could no longer lie still. No. A second before the needle pierced his flesh, Yeshu forcefully withdrew his hand and sat up abruptly. He did not hold back and rolled off the edge of the bed. Ugh. When Yeshu fell, he felt a stinging pain in his back. His eyes turned red from the pain. A pair of black brocade boots walked in front of him. Yeshu raised his head. His gaze followed the other party's luxurious black and gold dragon robe and met a pair of beautiful smiling eyes. Jin Wang's voice could be considered gentle and considerate. Did my beloved official sleep well? The scent of tea filled the hall. Yeshu neatly dressed himself and walked out of the inner room. He immediately saw Jin Wang sitting at the head of the table, sipping tea. He timidly walked over, Your Majesty. Jin Wang took a sip of tea and slowly said, Last night, my beloved official was a very pleasant delight. The teasing tone in his words was so strong that Yeshu's ears burned. He lowered his head and did not say anything. Jin Wang did not seem to mind. He put down his teacup and pointed at the things in front of him. I have prepared some gifts for you. 3 exquisite wooden boxes were placed on the ground, arranged in order from the smallest to the largest. Jin Wang raised his eyebrows slightly. Open them and take a look. Yeshu instinctively felt that it was not something good, but he did not dare to refuse. He directly walked forward and opened the first wooden box. There was a secret letter lying inside the box. Yeshu's heart skipped a beat. The seal on the letter was unique to the original owner of the body and could not be copied. This was a secret letter which was about the original owner of the body communicating with an enemy. With this, the matter of his betrayal and assassination plot was confirmed. What should he do? Yeshu's back was covered in a layer of cold sweat. He did his best to search through the original owner's remaining memories. His thoughts were in a mess and he subconsciously opened the second, slightly larger box. Ah! Yeshu's hand trembled. He slammed the lid back on the box and closed it again. Inside the box was a severed hand still dripping with blood. Yeshu was still in a state of shock when he heard Jin Wang leisurely said, "This was from the commander of my Imperial Guards. It's a pity that his flesh has been cut off and only this hand is left. He received quite a bit of money from you with this hand. Can you still recognize it?" Yeshu felt nauseous and a drop of cold sweat slid down his cheek. "Is this person depraved?" But Jin Wang only lightly said, "Open the third box." Yeshu looked at the last wooden box. His fingertips trembled slightly. The last wooden box was the largest and the lid was tightly sealed. It was impossible to see what was inside without moving the cover. Yeshu steeled his heart and walked over with large strides. He forcefully opened the lid. There was a human head lying at the bottom of the box. The two eyes of the head had been gouged out. Only two black holes were left, silently looking at him. Ah! Yeshu hurriedly retreated a few steps and fell to the ground. Jin Wang looked at him and said calmly, "This is one of the assassins who participated in the assassination attempt last night. He was just caught not long ago. There are still more than 10 people outside who have not been executed yet. Would you like to come with me to observe how they would be punished?" Yeshu's face was pale and his mind was buzzing. He stared blankly at Jin Wang. He only saw the other party's lips move but he could not hear a single word he said. In his extreme fear, Yeshu's vision finally turned black and he lost consciousness. The young man on the bed had a pale face. His eyebrows were tightly knitted and was obviously sleeping restlessly. Jin Wang sat by the bed and played with the other party's earlobe. "How is it?" The imperial physician finished taking Yeshu's pulse and placed his wrist back on the bed. He was just frightened. Perhaps he is still a little dizzy from seeing blood. He will wake up in a while. Dizzy from seeing blood. Jin Wang looked down and pinched Yeshu's cheek. Still so useless. The imperial physician looked at Jin Wang hesitantly. Jin Wang said, "If you have something to say, say it." The imperial physician bowed to Jin Wang and touched the ground with his forehead. "This office dare to ask your imperial majesty, how does your majesty intend to deal with Minister Ye?" Jin Wang's eyes narrowed slightly. The imperial physician felt a chill run down his spine and did not dare to raise his head. He braced himself and said, "Your imperial majesty has the body of an alpha. The mark of an alpha can only be given to one omega. After the mark is given, both parties' pheromones will fuse. Even the period of rut can only be spent with that omega. Unless the omega dies, this connection cannot be removed or transferred." Jin Wang played it down. "What do you want to say?" The imperial physician steeled his heart and said bluntly, "Your majesty is courting a disaster." Jin Wang did not speak for a long time. The imperial physician's shoulders trembled and beads of sweat slowly appeared on his forehead. The emperor of Changlu has an unpredictable nature but he never showed it on his face. Regardless of whether he was contemplating giving a reward or a punishment, he always played it down and maintained an elegant appearance. However, there was one situation that was different. That was when he was silent. Jin Wang's silence could only mean one thing. That he was considering which method to use on others. The longer he was silent, the more dangerous it would be. The atmosphere in the hall froze. The imperial physician finally could not bear it. "This official. What you said is reasonable." Jin Wang suddenly said softly, "Minister Ye already has the intention to rebel. He cannot be allowed to stay. But this emperor do not want him to die. The imperial physician raised his head in a daze. Jin Wang looked at him coldly and repeated his words softly. This emperor said that Zhen do not want him to die. The imperial physician trembled and kowtowed heavily. This official is in the wrong. Jin Wang did not say anything else. He walked in front of the imperial physician and helped him up. Senior official Feng is already old. You should not kneel for too long. The imperial physician did not dare to let Jin Wang help him up. He quickly stood up. Thank you, Your Majesty. Jin Wang sent the imperial physician out of the hall and said in a low voice, there should be a medicine that can temporarily suppress the pheromones. The imperial physician understood. This official understands. This official will do it now. Jin Wang nodded. His expression was still gentle. Senior official Feng is a senior official who has served for 3 dynasties. He once saved this emperor's life. Zhen will remember this. However, Zhen do not want to hear what was said today a second time. Yes, Your Majesty. The doors of the hall slowly closed, isolating all sounds from the outside world. Jin Wang returned to the bed and saw Yeshu's eyelashes trembling. It seemed that he was about to wake up. The corners of his mouth rose and he slowly lowered his head. Just as he was about to touch Yeshu's lips, the person under him suddenly moved sideways and shrank into the bed. Yeshu pulled the quilt and curled himself into a ball. He asked cautiously, "What are you doing?" Jin Wang saw him like this and was in a good mood. He asked, "Is Zhen that scary?" Yeshu was about to nod when he suddenly thought of something and quickly shook his head. Jin Wang smiled. "You were not so afraid of Zhen before." Yeshu buried half his face in the quilt. He said in a muffled voice, Is that so?" "Yes." Jin Wang sat down on the bed and said, "You once dared to scold Zhen in court. Don't you remember?" "Yeshu. The original was really brave." Jin Wang lowered his eyes. "Forget it. Let's talk about something else." Yeshu complained. "Don't show me the severe head again." "Zhen won't." Jin Wang's tone was very gentle. "Since it has been confirmed that you were the one who orchestrated it, the matter is much simpler. Your accomplices have already been imprisoned. As for the other people involved in this matter, Zhen will investigate them one by one and punish them according to the law. As for you, you are the mastermind. According to the law, those who conspire against the emperor should be punished with 1,000 cuts." Jin Wang looked at Yeshu and asked calmly, "Is there anything that my beloved official wants to say?" End chapter. Marked by a tyrant after transmigrating. Chapter 03. The room fell into silence once more. Yeshu clutched the soft silk blanket, his knuckles turning white as he barely managed to stop himself from fainting again. He even asked him what he wanted to say. Was there any point in saying anything now? This dog of an emperor. Jin Wang, on the other hand, was very patient. He sat on the edge of the bed and watched him quietly, not rushing him at all. The two were in a deadlock for a while before Yeshu asked with a trembling voice, If this official said that I did all this for your majesty's sake, would your majesty believe me?" Jin Wang clearly did not expect him to say this and nodded slightly. This emperor would like to hear the details. Yeshu quietly sized him up. Jin Wang had always been a person who did not show his emotions on his face. Even the attendants who had been by his side for many years found it difficult to discern what he was thinking. He was unpredictable. One second, he might be chatting and laughing with someone, and the next, he might start a massacre because of a single sentence he did not like to hear. Accompanying the emperor was like accompanying a tiger. This saying was not false. Yeshu was so nervous that his stomach spasmed. He rubbed his abdomen and braced himself to say, This official discovered that West Xia had secretly sent spies into the capital, so I pretended to cooperate with them. I did all this to lure them out and help your majesty eliminate foreign enemies. Jin Wang calmly said, "Continue." As for the commander of the Imperial Guards, he had long had thoughts of rebelling. Naturally, this official did all this to catch all the rebels in the court in one fell swoop. Perhaps he was too nervous, but Yeshu's thoughts became clearer the more he spoke. He made it up to the point that he almost believed it himself. "Also, didn't your Majesty receive news from spies beforehand that there would be an assassination attempt last night?" Jin Wang raised his eyebrows. "Did Minister Ye wants to say that you have something to do with that?" "Of course." Yeshu's expression was incomparably sincere. "This official was afraid that news would leak out, so I did not dare to inform your Majesty directly of the plan. I could only use this method to pass on the information. Fortunately, your Majesty is resourceful and cooperated seamlessly with me, so." Someone gently knocked on the door of the hall. Jin Wang raised his hand to stop Yeshu from speaking and called out, "Come in." Several maidservants carried trays into the hall. Yeshu immediately smelled the aroma of the food and his stomach rumbled. Jin Wang smiled. "Hungry?" "Yeah." Ever since Yeshu had transmigrated into this world, he had not eaten a single grain of rice. He had a chronic stomachache, and it was easy for his stomachache to relapse when he get too hungry. If his stomachache got too serious, he would have to be sent to the emergency room. Jin Wang stood up and said in a gentle tone, "Come, let's talk while we eat." Yeshu followed Jin Wang to the table. The servant who tested for poison had already finished testing the dishes. Jin Wang dismissed everyone and pulled Yeshu to sit down. Most of the dishes on the table were bland. Jin Wang personally scooped a bowl of soft millet porridge and pushed it in front of Yeshu. Yeshu glanced at him suspiciously. What a scene of deep brotherly love, a scene of a sage monarch and his virtuous minister. If he hadn't read the novel, he would have thought that he was in a socialist bromance novel. Why was Jin Wang acting out in front of him? The stabbing pain in his stomach became more and more obvious. Yeshu did not intend to make things difficult for himself and obediently ate the porridge. Jin Wang did not move his chopsticks. He tilted his head and looked at him for a while, then said in a gentle voice, "Minister Ye just said that you were the one who leaked the news of the assassination to Zhen's spy." Yeshu paused for a moment, then said naturally, "Yes." Jin Wang frowned slightly, as if he was considering whether he was telling the truth or not. In the novel, it was actually the original subordinates who did not keep their mouths shut. When they passed on the information, the spy in the capital found out about it. Now, he was trying to take advantage of that situation and make it sound like he had deliberately exposed the secret. If Jin Wang continued to ask, he could even tell him which spy had received the information and at what stage. He wanted to battle wits with him. You didn't expect that this young master had transmigrated into this world. Yeshu was very pleased with himself. Even the porridge that he was drinking became more fragrant and sweet. Jin Wang only supported his chin and asked curiously, "Then can Minister Ye tell Zhen how you were able to learn about Zhen's spy so clearly?" Yeshu's hand trembled and the spoon fell into the bowl of porridge. Damn! In order to consolidate his power, Jin Wang had set up 300 spies in the capital when he ascended the throne. The spies wandered in the dark and helped Jin Wang do all the things that were inconvenient for him to do in the open. Of course, he knew this from reading the novel. But in the novel, this was the #1 secret of Changlu. If he knew this secret, he would die a more miserable death than if he killed his own monarch. Yeshu's back was covered in a layer of cold sweat. His voice unconsciously trembled as he said, "Your Majesty." Jin Wang smiled slightly, "Zhen is here." "Speak slowly." Yeshu had nothing to say. He felt like he was dancing in a minefield. If he jumped, he would die. If he didn't jump, he would also die. Yeshu's stomach was in pain. He gave up and said, "Just give me a quick death." Jin Wang asked, "My dear minister, why would you say that? Looking at your Majesty's attitude towards me. Did your Majesty really believe me?" Yeshu pushed the bowl of porridge aside and stood up. He shouted, "Jin Wang, we have known each other since we were 7. Don't you know how I have treated you in the past 10 years? Jin Wang was stunned. Suspecting me and testing me. Since you are so sure that I did it, then just kill me. Just treat it as if my sincerity over the past 10 years has been fed to the dogs." Yeshu's eyes were red. Last night, you even treated me like that." Yeshu's voice was choked and trembling. He couldn't say anything more. Jin Wang fell silent. For a moment, only Yeshu's rapid breathing could be heard in the large room. He seemed to be unable to stand. He held his stomach and slowly squatted down. Jin Wang subconsciously went to help him up. "Don't touch me." Yeshu's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He said weakly, "Just let me die from the pain." Jin Wang's eyes darkened, but he didn't say anything. He quickly picked up Yeshu and strode into the inner room. Jin Wang placed Yeshu on the bed and went out to order someone to call for an imperial physician. Yeshu raised his eyelids and quietly looked outside. It seemed that this dog emperor was amenable to coaxing but not to coercion. The novel didn't go into detail about Jin Wang's feelings for the original, but it did mention a little. Jin Wang was born in the cold palace. His mother died of an illness when he was young. The previous emperor was licentious for beauties and indulged in pleasure. He didn't care about his own son. For a long time, Jin Wang and the original could only rely on each other for survival. During their most difficult times, the original had to use all sorts of methods just to get a mouthful of food. Jin Wang was young and weak. The original always left what little food he had for him. Because of this, the original developed an old illness in his stomach. Coincidentally, Yeshu also had stomach problems. That made things much simpler. He was too good at pretending to be sick. The sound of footsteps gradually approached. Jin Wang returned to the bed. Yeshu deliberately turned over to avoid looking at him. His thin back arched like a shrimp and he weakly trembled. Jin Wang filled a bowl with porridge. "Your old illness is acting up. Drink some porridge." Yeshu didn't even turn his head. "No." Jin Wang narrowed his eyes dangerously. "Yeshu, don't challenge Zhen's patience." Yeshu's fingers curled up and he nervously pursed his lips. He really did want to challenge him today. The inner room was silent. It was as if a silent undercurrent was surging between the two of them. After a moment, Jin Wang sighed. "Fine, this emperor is at fault." Jin Wang said, "Get up and eat something. The imperial physician will be here soon." Yeshu loosened his grip and his anxious heart finally calmed down. He had passed this hurdle. Jin Wang was still willing to coax him to eat and invite an imperial physician to treat him. This meant that he didn't want him to die for the time being. Yeshu turned over and sat up. His face was still somewhat pale. "Give it to me." Jin Wang ignored him. He scooped up a spoonful of porridge and blew on it to cool it down. Then, he brought it to Yeshu's mouth. "Drink." Yeshu hesitated for a moment, then obediently lowered his head and drank a mouthful. Jin Wang's expression finally relaxed. Jin Wang was actually very handsome. His facial features were fine and elegant. His eyes were sharp and carried a sense of aggression. However, when he looked at people with a smile in his eyes, the darkness in his eyes would disappear. Instead, one could vaguely see some affection and gentleness. It made people unconsciously indulge in it. "Do this emperor look good?" Jin Wang asked. Yeshu suddenly came back to his senses. His ears were burning as he said, "No, I wasn't looking at you." Jin Wang smiled and didn't say anything more. Jin Wang fed Yeshu spoonful by spoonful of porridge. He had just finished half a bowl when the imperial physician arrived. In reality, the old imperial physician's legs were hurting him. When Jin Wang sent someone to summon him, he had just walked to the palace gates. The imperial physician, who had done nothing the entire day other than go back and forth between the emperor's chambers and the palace gates, The imperial physician stepped forward to take Yeshu's pulse. Jin Wang didn't move aside and continued to feed Yeshu the porridge in a seemingly leisurely manner. The imperial physician didn't seem to notice and quickly took Yeshu's pulse. Minister Ye has a stomach problem. It's not good for him to be in a state of great joy or sorrow or be nervous. He must be calm and eat regularly to relieve his symptoms. Yeshu was speechless. Was there anyone who could remain calm while following this tyrant? Yeshu obediently said, "This official understand." The imperial physician nodded and went outside to prescribe medicine. After finishing the bowl of porridge, Jin Wang took out a silk handkerchief and gave it to Yeshu to wipe his mouth. Yeshu finally couldn't take it anymore and tilted his head to avoid it. "This subject can do it myself." Jin Wang smiled, "Are you feeling embarrassed? Was this person addicted to acting?" Yeshu took the silk handkerchief from his hand and wiped his mouth carelessly. The outer doors opened and the imperial physician left after prescribing the medicine. Yeshu raised his eyes to look at Jin Wang. The latter looked at him with an expression that couldn't be discerned whether he was happy or angry. This was actually very strange. With Jin Wang's petty and suspicious personality, he should have flown into a rage and thrown him into prison when he found out that the original had betrayed him. Instead of sitting here and calmly listening to his sophistry. Moreover, Yeshu vaguely felt that Jin Wang didn't seem to be too angry right now. Jin Wang calmly looked at him and softly said, "What you said just now made some sense. In the past 10 years, you have treated Zhen very well. Even if Zhen don't care about the relationship between monarch and subject, Zhen should still take into account our many years of friendship." Yeshu was moved. "Does this mean that your majesty believe me?" Jin Wang faintly smiled. "Zhen don't believe you. Zhen don't believe a single word." Yeshu. This person really was mad. End chapter.